President Trump a short time ago telling Walmart that the company should, I'm quoting now, eat the cost, end quote, of higher tariffs. The comments come after the retail giant said this week that it would raise prices because of Trump's tariffs being too high. The prices are just too on the high side. It's on the high side, especially for middle-class, low-income earners. Walmart, which has kept food prices at an acceptable level in the U.S. for decades, is now planning to scale back operations right in its own homeland. More than 50,000 employees could be laid off. 10 distribution centers from California to Florida will have to close. Stocks plummet, and something unprecedented, Walmart admits they cannot withstand the impact of the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. The tax package named Liberation Day, once praised by the media as a bold step to liberate the American economy, is now forcing Americans to pay higher prices for things that were once considered normal. And while Washington continues to debate strategy, a question is increasingly resonating across America. Are we protecting America or isolating ourselves? In this video, we will take you deep into the entire story behind the increasingly worsening food crisis, from the controversial tariff policies to Walmart's unexpected response and the repercussions that ordinary people are silently enduring. The video content is based on the analysis of public data, news, and consumer feedback. The video is not intended to attack any individual or policy. To understand what is truly collapsing, you don't need to look up at Wall Street, just look at your own grocery bill. If you still believe that just $100 can buy enough food for a whole week, then perhaps that belongs to a different America. An America that many people now only look back on through the bill in just the first 3 weeks of May. The cost of shipping a container from Asia to the U.S. rose from $3,500 to over $6,000 to $500, an increase of nearly 85% following a tariff announcement. And then, as you can see, the impact immediately spreads to every shopping cart. A tray of beef that used to cost $9 now reaches $4. Lettuce prices soared by 30% in just one price adjustment. Cereals, an almost essential item, have increased by per box. And with a family of 4, experts warn food costs will increase by at least $1,000 each year, even if consumption habits do not change. An elderly woman shared, "If prices keep rising, I might have to start cutting my grandchild's lunch." However, what makes people startled is not just the numbers. It lies in a detail that almost no one noticed. The slogan, "Everyday Low Price," which had been Walmart's unspoken promise for over 30 years, has quietly disappeared from the shelves. No announcement, no explanation. And that is the twist that startled many. The crisis did not happen in a day, but rather it was the small details falling apart. Starting from a silent price board, the question is not how much more will prices rise, but rather, are we entering an era where a full meal becomes a luxury for those who once considered it a norm? But the price increase is just the surface layer. Behind each price tag being removed is a door closing. Not only for consumers, but also for the tens of thousands of workers who once relied on the supply chain that was once considered unbreakable. On the store perspectives, investing in a near holes and detail and in more back in the United States. At the end of May, information about an internal memo titled Project Triage from Walmart's headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas, was leaked. It confirmed that 10 critical distribution centers nationwide would temporarily cease operations for 6 weeks, spanning from California to Florida. Each center typically employs over 1,000 full-time staff, along with approximately 1,500 seasonal workers. The total number of directly affected workers, nearly 50,000 people, of which up to 70% are on short-term contracts or through temporary agencies, and do not receive support when losing their jobs. The localities with closed centers account for 7% to 12% of the total local budget revenue, mainly through real estate taxes, income, logistics, and satellite consumption. Immediately after this news, within 48 hours, there were over 12 million views on TikTok with the hashtag MPY aisles, capturing images of empty shelves. The sign temporarily closed attached to the logistics stores and unemployed drivers pushing empty carts scattered throughout the parking lot in Groveport, Ohio. A driver for Walmart for 17 years sits behind the wheel of his old container. He shared, "I used to deliver overnight, no holidays, never late. Yet now I am left with only one undelivered package and a house about to be foreclosed by the bank." He is not angry, just confused. The cuts did not come from the market, but from an event in the Rose Garden, thousands of miles away in Brooksville, Florida, where Walmart's DC 630 Center contributes nearly 9% of the city's budget. An emergency meeting was convened between the city council and 200 satellite transport businesses. Just one phone call from Walmart is enough to trigger a domino effect of chain bankruptcies, from the uniform supplier for employees to the restaurant serving drivers and the logistics company running fixed routes. A city council member succinctly stated, "When Walmart stops shipping, the whole town can come to a standstill. If a decision from Walmart's headquarters can shake an entire town, and if 50,000 people could lose their jobs just because of a change in tax policy, then the question is no longer, will this affect me, but rather, when will it be your town's turn?" But what is even more terrifying than a supermarket closing is when the entire system operating behind it, from containers at the port, trucks on the road to factories in the suburbs, simultaneously collapses in silence. And it all started with a signature on a desk in Washington, D.C. Remember, at the beginning of April, President Donald Trump signed Executive Order 14.257, dubbed by the media as the Liberation Day Tariff Package, declaring a basic 10% tax on all goods imported into the U.S. except from Canada and Mexico. Just 4 days later, retaliatory tariffs were activated in groups: 145% on most goods from China, 50% on imports from the European Union, 25% on South Korean cars, and 20% on electronics from Japan. Less than 2 weeks later, more than 60 of America's official trade partners were affected. The earthquake began at the ports. Container shipping rates from China to the U.S. increased from $3,500 to over $6,500 in the first 3 weeks of May. It is forecasted that this number will reach $8,500 by mid-July. The rate of canceled trips, empty container stockpiles, and cargo congestion at ports have caused the entire logistics system to be delayed by an average of 10 to 15 days. Meanwhile, in Shenzhen, China, the Hunar toy factory, a 40-year partner of Walmart, was forced to cut production by 70% in just April. 130 out of 400 workers were laid off in 3 weeks due to a massive cancellation of U.S. orders. A union representative shared with Reuters reporters that each container now feels like a cost bomb that could explode at any moment. And not just Asia. Europe also reacted in just 3 trading sessions following the tax announced by the U.S. president. The European stock index, stock 600, lost 4.4%, equivalent to over $80 billion in market value, evaporating when factories in Asia shut down. The European market panics, and food prices in the U.S. rise by the hour. Does the America First policy really put Americans first? Or are we pulling the plug on the very system we built ourselves? For over half a century, the name Walmart has been synonymous with the concepts of low prices, convenience, and ubiquitous presence. But now, internally, the company is reconsidering what seemed untouchable: their level of presence in the United States. The Project Reset plan has not been widely announced, but has been confirmed through series of financial and operational moves. It consists of 3 main pillars. First, withdraw from China. In Q1 Troy 2025 alone, the proportion of consumer goods imported from China by Walmart decreased from 60% to 48%. Major suppliers in Guangdong and Xiamen had their contracts terminated in the first month of the 145% tariff implementation. Secondly, moving to Southeast Asia, but that is only a temporary solution. Walmart has resigned numerous contracts with factories in Vietnam, India, and Cambodia, especially in Hanoi. Walmart invested an additional $1.2 billion to build factories for household goods and textiles on the condition of a tax reduction to 25%. But just a month later, the White House threatened to impose a 46% anti-dumping tariff on Vietnam in the trade industry. That is a major taboo. Contracts are printed and canceled within the same week. Third, shifting to domestic production, a costly but necessary step to avoid geopolitical risks. Walmart issued $5 billion in bonds and broke ground on 3 factories in Arkansas, Ohio, and South Carolina. The goal is to reduce container shipping time from 28 days to under 7 days. But according to an analysis from JP Morgan, the cost of completely rebuilding the domestic supply chain could exceed $350 billion, not to mention the dependence on electricity prices, labor, state taxes, and the stability of the White House. To control fluctuations in the supply chain, Walmart partnered with Symbotic to deploy an AI system named Link 16, inspired by military data networks. With a cost of $520 million US. Link 16 is expected to scan shipping data, climate, tax policies, and port routes in real time. Automatically calculate 3 cost scenarios. Proactively redirect containers before incurring tax penalties. Optimize inventory. Avoid being reactive during times when policies change daily, if successful. Walmart estimates it will save $600 million each year while also opening an API to sell this solution to smaller retail partners, creating a new business direction. However, the biggest issue that Project Reset faces does not lie in technology, money, or manpower, but in the absolute uncertainty from the government. Every time the White House changes tax policy, even if it's just through a speech or a social media post, Walmart is forced to adjust its entire plan within 72 hours. Millions of USD are being burned on empty shipments, vacant warehouses, and pending orders. And more importantly, investors are starting to lose patience. In just 30 trading sessions after the tax package was announced, Walmart's stock lost more than 11% of its value, equivalent to 37 billion USD in market capitalization being wiped out. Retail ETF funds were forced to restructure their portfolios, creating a domino effect across the entire retail and logistics sectors. If Walmart, the largest retail business in the United States, can't hold on, then who will be next? This question has no answer yet, but the signs are clear. Small and medium-sized enterprises cannot invest in AI Link 16. No one but Walmart can move factories in just a few months, and the vast majority of consumers cannot pay an extra 20% for items that were once considered everyday low prices. If Walmart, with its enormous potential and global logistics system, still struggles every day with each tax increase. So what will happen to the smaller businesses, the towns that rely on freight transportation, and even the people who are living on frugal meals? We are witnessing a quiet withdrawal not only from the global market, but also from the very country where Walmart once stood as an icon. But if Walmart withdraws, who will be left behind, and what will they have left? When the president declared that America needs to be self-sufficient, needs to bring jobs back, many citizens applauded in support. Because after many years of witnessing factories move away and streets become deserted, who wouldn't hope to see made in USA products return to the shelves? But what is not clearly stated or often imagined is that to go from slogan to reality, America will have to traverse a thorny path. The fact is, the trade protection policy began with heavy tariffs on imports, especially from countries like China, the EU, and South Korea. But instead of making domestic products more competitive immediately, the first thing that happened was prices skyrocketed. The cost of shipping containers from Asia has nearly doubled. Imported goods are taxed up to 145%, and businesses pass that difference on to consumers. A chain reaction that everyone can see. The prices of goods skyrocketed, and a middle-class family's weekly supermarket bill increased by an average of $0 to $30. That means every year Americans have to pay nearly or more just to buy things that used to be very normal. Maybe someone thinks, fine, it's a bit expensive, but the goods will be made by Americans. But the reality is the supply chain, which took 30 years to build, cannot be recreated with just a signature. When Walmart cut contracts with the factory in Guangdong, they couldn't immediately have an equivalent factory in Arkansas. When the domestic factory started construction, they had to wait 2 to 3 years to train workers, establish processes, and source raw materials, which were previously imported. And in the meantime, the goods still need to be displayed on the shelves, but the prices are no longer everyday low. A logistics expert once likened it, You might say that you want to grow vegetables in your backyard. But if today you uproot the entire street market before sowing the seeds, who will feed your family throughout the winter? Not the government, not the global companies, but rather those who have to cross their favorite items off the shopping list. They are the workers who suddenly lost their fixed routes because the Walmart center closed. A worker shared, "I don't oppose domestic production, but before we are brought back to the factory, we are being left on the sidewalk." No one opposes the need for America to stand firm needs self-reliance. But does the path to achieving that necessarily have to start by pushing people to the brink of high prices, unemployment, and unemployment? And while Americans struggle with rising food prices, empty supermarket shelves, and broken supply chains, something worth pondering is happening not far away. Just north of the border. While Walmart in the U.S. is cutting back on distribution, Canada has recorded the strongest growth in food and consumer goods exports since 2016. Not because Canada is cheaper, not because they are richer in resources, but because, while the U.S. tightens trade with the world, Canada opens up just in time when the U.S. imposed high tariffs on Chinese, European, and Asian goods. Many international corporations chose Canada as an alternative transshipment point. In less than 6 months, multinational logistics companies have shifted over 40 container transport routes from California ports to Vancouver and Halifax. Canada's retail distribution system increased investment by 12% in food preservation, packaging, and order processing technology. Chains like Loblaw and Metro have started signing contracts directly with suppliers who previously worked with Walmart in the U.S. A textile factory owner in Bangladesh shared, "We used to sell 30,000 jackets to Walmart in the U.S. every month. Now the entire production line has moved to Walmart Canada. And not just Canada, the rest of the world is also shifting." Mexico increased agricultural exports to Asia by 28% thanks to a timely withdrawal from the U.S. market. India signs a $6 billion memorandum of understanding for supplying pharmaceuticals and consumer goods to the EU when the U.S. separates itself from multilateral trade flows. Other countries fill the gap without hesitation. What is frightening is not losing the market, but perhaps losing trust. In economics, the easiest thing to lose is not goods, but stability. When business partners don't know whether taxes will change next week, when transportation companies have to rewrite contracts every month, when Walmart in the U.S. indefinitely delays orders, but Walmart in Canada remains stable, then people started to question, is the U.S. still reliable as a global trade hub? In the U.S., where people have to pay more, wait longer, and accept fewer choices. While in Canada, supermarkets are still well-stocked, the system is still running smoothly, and prices haven't skyrocketed. Not because Canada is better, but because Canada didn't withdraw from the game. If Walmart USA has to cut orders, but Walmart Canada continues to expand, if American consumers have to pay higher prices while other countries receive goods at lower prices, then perhaps the concern is not that we are losing, but that others are winning with what we leave behind. Have you ever thought about that? In the chaos of rising prices, broken supply chains, increasing unemployment, and empty shelves, it's easy to feel helpless. But perhaps the most important thing right now is not to find a way to save the economy, but to find one's own voice in the overwhelming picture. It may sound simple, but every purchasing decision is an implicit vote for the direction of the economy. There's no need to boycott anyone, nor is there a need to blindly support any brand. Consumers just need to ask one question before making a payment. Where's this product made? Who will be paid from the money I'm about to spend? Prioritizing domestically produced goods, if done transparently, not only helps retain jobs for locals, but also sends the message that American consumers are willing to support but do not want to be exploited. Many people used to think that personal opinions couldn't change anything, but now in the age of social media, policy surveys, and community feedback, every voice can contribute to shaping public opinion. Whether it's participating in a town forum, sending a letter to a local representative, or simply sharing a post like this, it is all action, because a policy system is only truly dangerous when the people no longer want to debate it. And don't forget, support honest businesses, not empty slogans. Americans are too familiar with slogans like Made in USA, Support America, Bring Jobs Home. But in the end, concrete actions are what truly matter. Keep an eye on businesses that not only talk, but also act. Brands that are transparent about their production. Those that retain employees instead of laying them. Those that retain employees instead of laying them off en masse. The small shops still grit their teeth and maintain prices amidst the inflation surge. Hope does not come from promises, but from the quiet actions of those who maintain kindness in difficult times. Although Walmart is trying to overcome a difficult period, the Project Reset plan, if successful, could set a precedent for the entire industry. Bringing production back to the US, implementing AI logistics technology, reducing shipping time from 28 days to 7 could open up a more sustainable system if accompanying policies are stable. Nothing can change overnight, but if businesses adjust, consumers adjust, and the entire system listens, then America still has a chance to correct itself. Without losing its dignity, we have rebuilt America after many major events. So why can't we start over from a small shopping cart, a small voice in a conscious purchasing decision? Maybe we can't change the policy, but we can change the way we live within that policy, and from there, quietly create a strong enough pull to make the entire machine listen. Walmart is not just a chain of supermarkets. It used to be a symbol of stability, of access to affordable goods, of the belief that ordinary Americans could still live comfortably. But when Walmart itself starts to waver, when 50,000 people lose their jobs just because of a tax line, when beef prices rise by $5 and milk becomes a luxury for a single mother, perhaps the issue is no longer about a company changing, but about a society gradually losing the things that were once very familiar. If you've ever seen your bills go up, seen a favorite store close down, or simply noticed that life is becoming harder to live, leave a comment below. Not to complain, but to remind each other that we are not alone in this change. If you feel this is worth listening to, please share this video with someone who needs a calmer yet more genuine perspective. And if you want to continue following stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next content. The content of this video is created for informational and educational purposes, compiled from reports, public data, user feedback, and mainstream news. We do not represent any organization, individual, or political viewpoint, and we do not draw absolute conclusions about the events or individuals involved. All analyses are objective, aimed at provoking reflection and constructive dialogue within the community.